Damien Voss sat high in his glass office, like a king on a modern throne. The skyline of the city sparkled behind him, but inside the building, no light reached the hearts of the workers. Vostech was one of the most successful tech companies in the world, but its employees didn't smile. They didn't speak freely. They didn't even look up when they walked past their CEO. Everyone feared Damien Voss. He wasn't old, maybe in his early 40s, but power had made him colder than winter. His eyes were sharp, his voice always loud, and his rules were final. People called him the shark behind his back. Some joked he didn't eat food, just pressure. He fired people over small things. One man was fired for typing one extra space in a report. A woman lost her job because her shoes squeaked when she walked during a meeting. One worker fainted from working too long without a break. Damien stepped over him without stopping. No one dared speak up. At lunch, the cafeteria was always silent. No one laughed. No one made friends. They picked their food quietly, hoping not to be noticed. The kitchen workers avoided eye contact with Damien. Even the head chef stayed hidden when he walked in. But everything changed one Monday morning. A new cook joined the kitchen. His name was Malik. He was tall, maybe in his late 30s, with dark skin, strong hands, and kind but confident eyes. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. He didn't rush. He moved like someone who knew what he was doing, not just in cooking but in life. Malik didn't seem scared. He worked calmly, served food with care, and even smiled when he handed out meals. It was rare to see someone smile in that building. At first, employees thought he was just new. Maybe he didn't know who Damien Voss was. That changed during his first week. Damien entered the cafeteria, as usual. The air became heavy. Workers straightened their backs. Forks froze midair. The CEO walked to the counter, eyes scanning the food like a hunter looking at prey. He looked at the plate Malik served and frowned. "What is this?" he asked coldly. "Braised beef with garlic mash and roasted greens," Malik replied, polite but not nervous. Damien poked the food with a fork. "It looks like trash." There was silence. Everyone expected Malik to panic. Apologize. Maybe cry. That's what others did. But Malik didn't flinch. He looked Damien in the eyes and said softly, "You must be starving for something real." A few workers gasped. Someone dropped a spoon. Damien blinked. No one ever spoke to him like that. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I said, maybe this food isn't what you're hungry for," Malik said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile. He just looked at Damien like he wasn't afraid, like he saw a man, not a monster. Damien didn't reply. He stared at Malik, then slowly turned and walked away, plate untouched. The room remained silent until Damien left. Then whispers exploded. "Did you hear what the cook said?" He looked him in the eyes. Is he crazy? Who is this guy? No one had stood up to Damien in years. And now a cook, a new cook, had done it with only a few calm words. People watched Malik more closely after that. He didn't show off. He didn't talk about what happened. He just kept cooking, quiet, focused, peaceful. But the workers began to change. A few started smiling. Some whispered jokes during lunch. One even laughed. Malik had done something no one expected. He gave people a small taste of courage. In a place ruled by fear, that was the first real change. After that strange day in the cafeteria, Malik became more than just a cook. People whispered about him in the halls, in the elevator, even in emails written with invisible ink. He didn't just serve food, someone said. He served truth. He looked Damien in the eye and didn't flinch, another added. But Malik? He stayed the same. Every morning, he walked into the kitchen with quiet steps. His hands moved like a dance, cutting, mixing, boiling with the same calm rhythm. He greeted the cleaning staff by name. He refilled the tea before anyone asked. His smile was not fake. It wasn't the kind you wear for a job. It was steady, gentle, unbothered. And that smile started bothering Damien Voss. The CEO couldn't forget that moment in the cafeteria. It played in his head like a broken song. You must be starving for something real. Who did this cook think he was? Damien had built Vostech from a garage to a tech empire. He had crushed competitors, bought senators, made headlines. He wasn't going to be challenged by a man with a spoon. So, Damien made a plan. The next day, he called the head of HR. Fire the new cook, he said. Immediately, there was silence. Then the HR head, Mr. Levin, replied nervously, Sir, he wasn't hired through our usual process. What do you mean? Damien snapped. He was sent by the board. Special placement. Signed off by the chairman himself. Damien's jaw tightened. The board? Why would they care about a cook? He slammed the phone and marched down to the kitchen. The door to the kitchen swung open like a storm. Pots clanged. Silence followed. Malik turned slowly from the stove, wiping his hands on a towel. Damien stood there, eyes sharp as razors. You think you're clever? He hissed. You think a few words make you a hero? No, Malik replied calmly. I think silence makes people slaves. For a second, Damien didn't speak. He wasn't used to being answered. Most people gave him fear. Malik gave him facts. You don't belong here, Damien said, voice low. I belong wherever truth is needed, Malik answered. And then he turned back to the stove. Damien left, speechless. After that, Malik became a quiet legend. Employees started coming to the cafeteria not just to eat, but to watch. They waited for small things, words, gestures, a look that reminded them. Courage was possible. Malik didn't preach. He didn't talk about rights or freedom. He just did his job better than anyone. One worker, Anita, who had been scolded by Damien in front of a full board meeting, came to Malik one day. She looked broken. Malik gave her a plate of warm lentil stew and said, Pain needs heat to become strength. Anita cried. Then she stood taller. Small changes began. People smiled more. Some stayed a little longer at lunch. One brave soul even put up a small joke sign at the coffee machine. Beware the shark. He hates overbrewed coffee. It was taken down in 5 minutes. But it was a start. Malik continued cooking like nothing had changed. But inside the building, something had. The fear was still there, but now so was something else. Hope. And in the middle of it stood a black man in a white apron, whose only weapon was truth, and whose shield was peace. Damien Voss watched all this from his tower. And he knew, this cook wasn't ordinary. This was war. But not the kind he was used to. This was a quiet war. Fought with kindness. With calm. With truth. And worst of all, Malik was winning. The building felt different now. It was still quiet, still cold, but the fear was no longer alone. It shared space with something new. Something dangerous. Confidence. Damien Voss noticed it everywhere. In the way employees held their heads a little higher. In the way they paused before answering him. In the way the cafeteria no longer felt like a graveyard. And every road led back to one man. Malik. Damien hated that name. One morning, Damien called an emergency leadership meeting. Executives rushed into the glass room, laptops shaking in their hands. Damien stood at the head of the table, jaw tight, eyes burning. This place is losing discipline, he said. People are getting comfortable. Comfort creates weakness. No one spoke. Then he added, slowly, find the source. Everyone knew the source, but no one said out loud. That afternoon, Damien walked into the kitchen again. This time, he didn't shout. He smiled, and that scared people more than his anger. Malik was preparing soup, steam rising around him. Malik, Damien said smoothly, walk with me. The kitchen staff froze. Malik wiped his hands and followed. They walked through a long hallway lined with awards and magazine covers. Damien Voss, Visionary of the Year, the man who changed the future. Damien stopped near a large window. Do you know why you're here? He asked. Malik nodded. To cook. Damien laughed. No, you're here because I allow you to be. Malik looked at the city below. That's what you think. Damien's smile disappeared. I built this company, Damien said. I break people who don't respect it. Malik turned to face him. Then why are you afraid to cook? Silence hit like a wall. Damien stepped closer. I'm not afraid. Then stop watching me, Malik replied. Damien's face turned red. For the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't control. He felt challenged. The next day, Damien struck back. He sent a company-wide email. New policy. Kitchen staff will be evaluated weekly. Any behavior deemed disruptive will lead to immediate termination. Everyone knew what that meant. Malik knew too, but he didn't react. He came in early, cooked better meals, and spoke even less. His calm was louder than any protest. Employees watched, worried. They expected Malik to be fired any moment. Instead, something strange happened. The board arrived. Black cars rolled in. Security stood straight. The same board Damien feared more than the press. They asked for lunch, and they asked for Malik. Damien's heart sank. During lunch, the board members praised the food. They spoke to Malik with respect. One of them even said, "You remind me of someone I used to be." Damien watched from across the room, fists clenched. After the board left, Damien cornered Malik in the kitchen. "You planned this," he accused. "No, Malik replied. I prepared." "For what?" "For this moment." Damien laughed bitterly. "You think you're smarter than me?" "I think wisdom and power are not the same," Malik said. Damien slammed his hand on the counter. "You are a cook." Malik didn't step back. "And you are a man who forgot how to listen." The words cut deeper than any insult. That night, employees stayed late, talking quietly. For the first time, they spoke about things they never dared before. Burnout, fear, abuse. Something had started. Damien stood alone in his office, staring at the city. His empire was still tall, still rich, but it was cracking. Not from outside, from inside. And it was all because of a man who didn't raise his voice, didn't beg, didn't fight like others. Malik had issued a challenge without ever saying the word. And Damien Voss finally understood something terrifying. You can crush noise. You can silence anger. But you cannot control calm. The air inside Voss Tech had changed. It wasn't just Malik anymore. His presence had become a signal, a silent permission for others to feel human again. People were speaking up in whispers. Some were laughing at desks. Others were sharing stories of survival over coffee. But Damien Voss saw it differently. To him, it was war. A quiet rebellion was growing under his nose, and the man at the center of it all wore a white apron and smelled like rosemary and garlic. Damien had tried policies. He had tried intimidation. Nothing worked. Now, he was ready to destroy Malik the old-fashioned way. That week, Vostech announced its biggest investor event of the year, the Future Summit. Important names from around the world would attend, billionaires, politicians, global media. It was the kind of event Damien used to dominate. This year, however, the board insisted the food be handled by the in-house talent. In other words, Malik. Damien tried to object. He's just a cook. But the board only smiled. He's the only person here people actually trust. That hit like a slap. With cameras ready and guests arriving, Damien decided this would be the night Malik fails. Malik worked through the night. He prepped herbs with care. He chose ingredients like a painter chooses colors. He told his small kitchen team, every dish must speak without words. Feed them truth. There was no shouting, no panic. Just focused hands and steady hearts. Across the building, Damien planned something else. He called a private security team. Not to protect the event, but to watch Malik. He told them, find something, anything. I want him humiliated tonight. The event began. Flashbulbs popped. Red carpets stretched through the lobby. Powerful people in sharp suits sipped wine and spoke of stocks and satellites. Then came the food. Malik's plates arrived like poetry on porcelain. Dishes were warm but bold, rich yet balanced. Each flavor told a quiet story of dignity, of struggle, of calm strength. People were amazed. One guest asked Damien, where did you find this chef? He's a genius. Another said, this meal is more honest than most politicians I know. Damien's face burned. He couldn't take it anymore. After the last dish, Damien walked on stage to give his closing speech. But instead of talking about technology or success, he exploded. I'm tired, he said loudly, of hearing praise for a cook. A cook. Guests froze. Malik, standing at the back, didn't move. This man, Damien pointed, has done nothing but play mind games. He's not special. He just serves food with attitude. Murmurs began. Phones came out. Cameras recorded. He works in my building. That means I own this moment, not him. People gasped. And then Malik stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He walked onto the stage, stood beside Damien, and faced the crowd. Then, calmly, he said, I serve food. That is true. But food is not just taste. It is truth. It carries memory, pain, strength, and love. He turned to Damien. You build a kingdom, but you forgot to feed your people. The room went silent. Then applause. Slow at first, then rising. One investor stood up, then another. A full standing ovation. Damien stood frozen, drowning in the very spotlight he built. By morning, the video had gone viral. CEO loses cool over cook's wisdom. The calm that crushed arrogance. Who is Malik? The man who changed Vostek. Damien tried to control the story. He called PR teams, issued statements, but the damage was done. The board called an emergency session. Employees signed anonymous letters. Malik? He returned to the kitchen the next morning like always. He made breakfast for everyone. No interviews, no drama, just eggs, toast, and peace. Because Malik understood something Damien never would. The loudest power is the one that doesn't need a shout. The video of Damien's meltdown spread like wildfire. By the next morning, it was on every major news site, every social media page, every TV talk show. People weren't just watching, they were choosing sides. And almost no one chose Damien Voss. The world didn't cheer for power anymore. It cheered for dignity. And Malik had given people something real. Inside Vostek, things were changing fast. Employees who once walked like ghosts now had fire in their eyes. They didn't look over their shoulders as much. Some even smiled at security guards. One in turn brought muffins for the whole office, just because she felt free for the first time. But Damien? He was falling apart. He spent hours in his office, lights off, curtains closed. His phone buzzed nonstop, the board, lawyers, the media. Even his mother called, saying, "Maybe it's time you listened." He didn't respond. Instead, he stared at the screen, watching the moment over and over again. You built a kingdom, but you forgot to feed your people. Those words hit deeper than a slap. And what made it worse? Malik had said them without hate, without shouting, without even raising his voice. It was truth, and truth always burns. The board wasted no time. They arranged an emergency vote. Some members believed Damien was still useful. Others said the company's image was bleeding. Meanwhile, Malik kept cooking. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't talk to reporters. He didn't claim victory. He just showed up every day, apron tied, hands clean, eyes calm. But something was different now. People came to the kitchen not just for meals, but for peace. An older employee, Mr. Fletcher, who hadn't spoken in meetings for 5 years, came to Malik one evening. He looked tired, holding a file of old papers. My father worked in the same building when it was a factory, he said. He said workers deserved food with soul. You reminded me why I stayed here this long. Malik nodded and handed him a bowl of soup. Sometimes healing didn't need speeches. It needed presence. Soon, a staff meeting was called, open to all employees. That had never happened before. Hundreds gathered in the main hall. Damien walked in, thinner, quieter, but still dressed like a king. The board sat behind him. Reporters stood at the back. And then Malik entered. No suit, no meek, just the same white apron. He stood at the edge of the stage. No spotlight, no script. Someone from the crowd asked, "Do you want to be our new CEO?" Gasps, whispers, eyes wide. Malik smiled. No, he paused. I didn't come here to take power. I came here to remind you that you always had it. The room went silent. He continued, power without people is noise. But people with purpose? That's real fire. Applause exploded. Even some board members stood. The vote was announced hours later. Damien Voss, removed as CEO. He didn't fight it. He didn't argue. He just packed his things, walked through the same halls he once ruled, and paused at the cafeteria. Malik was there, cleaning up. Damien looked at him, face tired, pride gone. I thought I was unshakable, he said. Malik looked up. You were. But even stone breaks when it forgets to bend. For the first time, Damien nodded. Then, he walked away. That evening, the kitchen lights stayed on a little longer. Malik prepared one last meal before closing for the night. A simple dish, grilled bread, butter, herbs, and warm tomato stew. He left a note beside it. For whoever comes next, lead with flavor, not fear. The fall of Damien Voss was loud. But what came after was silent and slow. Like sunlight creeping into a dark room after years of shadow. There was no official parade. No announcement. But people knew. The fear was gone. For the first time in years, the building didn't feel like a prison. The chairs in the cafeteria weren't just filled, they were alive. Employees actually talked, laughed. Some even brought guitars and played during lunch breaks. Others shared meals from home, proudly introducing their cultures. And in the middle of it all was Malik, still in his apron, still quiet, still showing up at 6 a.m. sharp. But now he wasn't just a cook. He was the soul of the company. After Damien's exit, the board scrambled to find a new CEO. Resumes poured in, people with degrees from Ivy League schools, men in sharp suits with empty words. But the staff had already made their choice. Not for a new boss, but for a new way. They didn't want another tyrant. They wanted change. Real change. It started with a memo from the janitor's team. "We want seats at the operations meeting," it read, "because we clean the floors where those ideas are built." Then the customer support team followed. "Add us to design reviews," they said. "We hear what the people really want." Soon, teams from every level were speaking up, not with anger, but with clarity. A new idea was born. The circle table. Every Friday, 12 employees from every department and every level would sit together, eat together, and share one idea to improve the company. No taitas, no ranks, no egos. Malik was invited to the very first meeting. He brought homemade cornbread and sweet tea. They didn't talk about profits. They talked about people. Weeks passed. The changes weren't huge at first, but they were real. Flexible hours, mental health days, workshops on empathy, culture, and conflict resolution. One team built an internal app called Whisper, a tool for employees to share concerns anonymously but constructively. Another started a podcast called Voices of Voss, where workers told personal stories of struggles, growth, and wins. But none of this was forced. It grew like a garden, because Malik had reminded them, food without love is just fuel. Work without purpose is just survival. One day, a young engineer named Tasha asked Malik during lunch, "Why didn't you become CEO? You could have had all the power." Malik smiled. "Power is heavy. I prefer to carry light." She laughed. "But you changed everything." He paused. "No, I just added the right ingredients. You all stir the pot." Tasha blinked. "So, with a recipe?" "You always were," he said. Then came the biggest shift. The board asked Malik for a formal title. He refused the corner office, but agreed to become Chief Culture Officer, a new role focused on humanity, not just performance. His first act? A kitchen on every floor. Not a cafe. A kitchen with stoves, pans, and space to cook and share. "If we can eat together, we can work together," he said. And it worked. Months later, other companies began to notice. Journalists called it the Voss rebirth. Business schools taught it as the Malik model. But Malik didn't change. He still made soup every Monday, still wiped tables, still remembered every intern's name. Because this wasn't about fame. It was about flavor. The flavor of respect. The taste of being seen. The heat of truth. The sweetness of unity. And so, what began as a simple act, a cook looking a CEO in the eye, became something greater. A quiet revolution. Served warm, seasoned with purpose, and shared by many. Winter arrived in the city. The air turned sharp, the sky gray, but inside Voss Tech, warmth lived. Not in machines or money, but in people. In laughter that echoed in the cafeteria. In shared meals that brought teams closer. In quiet glances between co-workers that said, "We built this together." And it all traced back to one man. Malik. He still wore the same apron. Still cooked like he was making music. But now, his name echoed beyond the walls. Schools studied him. Authors wrote about him. Business leaders came to visit. Not to teach, but to learn. But Malik? He remained grounded. No fame touched his heart. No praise fed his ego. One morning, Malik arrived at work earlier than usual. The city was still asleep. Lights flickered as snow fell gently outside. He moved through the empty halls, touching the walls as if saying goodbye. Then he stepped into the kitchen, made tea, and began writing something on a small card. When the first employees arrived, they found a note pinned to the kitchen board. "Dear family, I believe food is memory, and this place has given me enough to last many lifetimes. I've taught what I came to teach. Now, it's time for you to feed the future. Stay kind. Stay bold. Stay warm. Malik. No one saw him leave. No car. No box. Just gone. The news spread like thunder. Some thought he'd gone to start a restaurant. Others believed he was writing a book. Some joked he joined a secret mission to fix broken companies around the world. But no one knew for sure. What they didn't know was this. Malik had changed them forever. And that change didn't disappear when he walked away. The circle table became an official part of company policy. Other firms copied it. Governments studied it. The kitchens Malik started? Now, they existed in 43 companies around the globe. Vostek's new motto: feed, build, rise. Every desk had a quote printed on it. Power feeds the body. Purpose feeds the soul. Malik. And once a year, on the day Malik left, the entire company celebrated Day of the Apron. No suits allowed. Everyone wore aprons. Engineers, managers, board members. They cooked together, ate together, and shared stories of change. Not just at work, but in life. Tasha, the young engineer who once asked Malik about power, became the company's youngest CEO 5 years later. Her first speech? I don't come here to lead from above. I come to cook beside you. And she did. Her first executive meeting was held in the kitchen, with stew and cornbread. Years passed. Malik became a legend. Not because he shouted, not because he controlled, but because he served. He didn't fight the old system with anger. He melted it with grace. He didn't demand change. He inspired it, plate by plate, word by word. He was the fire beneath a frozen world. And he lit others without burning himself. Some say he lives quietly by a lake now, that he grows his own herbs, that he teaches cooking to kids, that he still wears the same apron. No one knows for sure, but in thousands of hearts, in every break room laugh, in every workplace that dares to put people first, Malik still serves.